Anybody wants to say anything? Okay. Today we have a really special speaker, okay? What can I say about this gentleman? And I talked to him briefly, and he said that in his family, he was one of the fast burners in education. He said it only took him 14 years to get through the high school days of his life and everything. And upon graduating, he was number 35 in his class. 35 in his class out of 33, right, Don? All right, so I don't know. And he has a very unique job. He goes, I said, what do you do for a living? He goes, I can't tell you, Jerry, but everybody's dying to see me. I don't know what that means. So I'll call her lean to it. So let's give a round of applause for Don Thurnberg coming up here.
First of all, if I look sleepy today, I finally found a place to sleep last night. After the program last night, I got home, my suitcase was sitting at the front door, and she had the door locked. And thank goodness Cecil and Carol Thompson stopped by, so I went home with them, stayed the rest of the night. So, anyway, talking about the diploma and so forth, I had a hard time getting through school. I had a principal, he was kind of tough, but you go through life and you have a lot of lookalikes. You always see people look alike. And our principal looked just like the guy sitting right over here, Fred Holland. And anyway, Sheila, we went home last night, Sheila said, I just can't get over how much Fred looked like Chick Moore, that was our principal. And I said, yeah, and she said, the only thing I think different than that, Fred would have probably signed my diploma in 12 years just to get rid of me. But anyway, if you got any questions on what I talk about, I'm going to have book signing out here. I'll be signing books out here, and Mike will be at the door with a collection plate to take up collection in case anybody wants to support my travel expense and so forth. So anyway, I've got a name. I wonder if anybody can guess the name of the book that I'm writing. It's called 4Ds, like in David. It's called Digger, Dawn, Diapers to Deep Ends. And it's number 2 volume. So much for that. Okay. First of all, I want to thank Tom back here for all the work that he does getting these meals ready. I know he has a lot of help also. But when I was trying to get my talk ready, I came in to talk with the minister to see what could put on the air and what we couldn't put on the air. And I couldn't get over, and I went home and told Sheila, I said, I just can't get over how friendly a group they are, how happy they all seem to be working with each other. And the office helped and all, and Jerry, thanks to him too. But anyway, they just seemed like just a happy bunch to work with. And I told her, I said, well, in the 52 years I was in business, it was always kind of quiet. I just had quiet working conditions. There wasn't anybody to talk to. So anyway, it made it kind of boring. But anyway, Jim Jacobs, he's not here today, so I can work on him. Don't rely on Jim to give you any transport to go on a trip or anything. Sheila and I said, well, we're going back up home to Indiana, but we might go through Gatlinburg. And Jim said, oh, I know just the route you want to go up to Wilkinsville, where I used to live, and said, I live at the church there, and the people, they're just so friendly, such nice people. And he said, I even know the sheriff up there. And he said, I'll call the sheriff, tell the sheriff that you're coming. I said, oh, I don't do that. I said, call the sheriff, tell him you're coming. He said, yeah, I said, he'll help you. He'll help you find a place to stay. And when we got up there and talked to him, the only place he had bars on the windows. So don't ask Jim for any help. But when we stopped there, I thought, well, I'm going to work on Jim. He's working on me. So I went to the front desk, and the 2 ladies standing there, and I said, have you ladies lived here quite a while? And they said, yeah, we've been here quite a while. I said, did you happen to know any fellow by the name of Jim Jacobs? And they said, yeah, we know him. He was our preacher. We was in church. We just loved him. And I said, are you sure that you don't have 2 people in town by the name of Jim Jacobs? And she said, well, why is that? And I said, well, I'm with the FBI. I'm with the FBI, and I said, were looking for him for passing bad checks. And I said, what could have been, let's check it. I said, he was, if you're a minister here, I said, I can't believe it. And they said, we can't believe it. I said, well, I said, did his wife, do you happen to know what his wife's name was? And they said, well, it was Cindy. And I said, oh, it's gotta be him. That's gotta be him. And so I didn't say anything. I just went on back to the back. Sheila wasn't standing there with me. I went on back and I stood back in the back and I thought, well, I'm gonna look and see what they do. And so I went back and boy, they were him up there just talking, can't be him, can't be him, can't be him, can't be him, you know. And so I finally walked up there and I said, well, ease your mind. I said, we love him too. I said, he really not wanted for that, but he said, you dirty dog. Consequently, they wouldn't let me have a room. You know, God appears to us through life. We go through life, we come get challenges and get times when we pass up opportunities to take things and go with it. And so I know a lot of you fellows, every one of you fellows here probably got a better story to tell than what I have. But anyway, I cannot believe that there's 2 elders in this church. That really kind of disappointed me the other day because they told me when we were standing out here that when we get to heaven, if it's like Disney World and they have a pass lane, Sheila will probably get in that lane and go right on in the fan pass. Yeah. I think it was Roger and Fred, I think was the name. But they said Sheila deserves to get in the fast pass lane. Yeah. Okay. Well, I came from a very Christian family. You wouldn't know it, but I did. My dad was an elder in the church. Mother played the organ, played the piano, and she had a choir, a children's choir. And she gave all the kids in the church that wanted music lessons, free music lessons. And you know, Marshall Liggett. Some of you in here remember Marshall Liggett. Marshall Liggett started out in our church in Lane, Indiana. That we started out where he came out of college, and he went, of course, on to become president of Milligan College. But anyway, Marshall Liggett told my dad one time, and my dad's name was Francis. He said, Francis, you surely wasn't trying very hard when you had him, did you? If you knew Marshall and couldn't know it come from Marshall. But we came here some 20 years ago, and we were looking for a church, and we went to the big machine where the church here was here, and we seen they had Bill Twidell here. So we came to church here, and so after church, we walked up to Bill and said, Bill, would you happen to have known Marshall Liggett? He said, well, Marshall Liggett and I was good friends in college and so forth. I've known him for years. So anyway, Marshall was quite a minister. We had a town of 1,500 people, and one school, and one poison light, but Marshall was minister there for several years and went on to be minister at Milligan, president of Milligan College. So anyway, in a small town, 1,500 people. Okay. One thing about town, one thing we had in town, I don't know how many of you people like Kool-Aid or drink Kool-Aid, but I don't know how many people remember the name of Jimmy Jones. Oh, yeah. Okay. Jimmy Jones lived 2 houses just south of Sheila, 2 houses down from Sheila. When that happened, you cannot imagine what happened to a town of 1,500 people. We were bombarded with the press and everything else. Me being the funeral director there, we finally had to get police protection for the funeral home and for ourselves too because of the press and because everybody thought that Jimmy Jones came back to our place. He did later, but not then. So it was really quite an ordeal with him, the Kool-Aid drinker. But when he was growing up in our town, we had a business at one end of town, the funeral home the other end, and Jimmy lived just 2 houses from the business. He was always coming in to our office and sitting there and looking at books. He was always having dog and cat funerals and everything. He was a weirdo from the word go. He would come back through town after the years when he got older. He'd come back through town with busloads of people and come to the church there and so forth. But he was just a weird character. But anyway, over here. Fred, you'd love to have that. Some kid in your student had that car with you. That was my car in school. Yeah. And you wonder why it took me 14 years to get through? Anyway, on this side of the car, my mother, the Christian she was and everything, we got her, she was a good painter. She painted an outhouse, that's an outhouse on one side of the car. On the other side of the car, I cannot say what went on there. But anyway, that was, you see the tires don't even match. Every time something happened to the car, you go to the junkyard and get another part for it. You know, all the way through. I'd come out of school, and of course it just had a flip switch on it, no key, just flip switch. I'd come out of school and I just wait after a while here and come back, and it'd be gone, somebody'd be driving, it'd take off. And we had more fun with that thing, we had a water tower. We had a water tower in town, and we had a town marshal, here's the water tower, and the town marshal's little outhouse, and I sat in all night, sits out here. We'd crawl up the water tower after dark, crawl up the water tower and take tomatoes with us. And Tom was the night marshal. We'd throw him down, and Tom, he'd wonder where this coming from. We'd take off in the car, So, lucky it didn't take me 20 years to get through school, but anyway. Okay, that kind of takes care of it. So, anyway, God has a way of working things. Sheila and I one day decided we wanted to go to North America, go down to Cincinnati to the North American Christian Convention that was going on. And so we, you can flip that, not now, okay. Yeah, you go ahead and flip that if you want. Okay, we went down to Cincinnati to the convention to Cincinnati. It wasn't a very nice day, we almost didn't go. We got down there and got in, we decided to go to the evening session. And when we went to the evening session, there was probably 2,000 people in there. And in the 2,000 people, Sheila and I sat on kind of the front row part of the area, and we had 2 empty seats right next to us. The place was packed. Two seats. Now I told people, I said, you know, I could understand if I was in Lynn where I lived, that nobody wanted to sit by me. But I said, here's 2 empty seats. I couldn't figure out why. The program started, and 2 fellows walked up and sat down beside him. And we started talking. He and I started talking. He said, well, my wife's a medical doctor here, a pediatric doctor here in Cincinnati. We're going to give up her practice, and we're going to take our kids, and we're going to Africa on missions. And so, anyway, we talked, and so after it was over with, Sheila said, well, what were you 2 guys talking about? And I told her, I said, well, they're going on a mission trip, and of course, they're looking for sponsors. She said, Sheila's last name was Thomas, her maiden name, so I said, she was a doubting Thomas on this case, but anyway, she said, I think he's pulling your leg. I said, I know we can do that or not. And I said, well, we'll test the water. So anyway, when we got home, I talked to the missionary person about it, what had happened, and he said, well, I think there was a reason for that happening. He said, why don't you invite him to come up and talk? So he brought his family to come up and talk to us. And so at that time, the little boy was not born, so that's been about 15 years ago. She was Indian descent, and she gave up a medical practice, and they went to Africa, to Burkina Faso, on a trip, and they're back over there now, but they've been in the mission field for about 15 years. And we wondered why those 2 empty seats out there, somebody up above had their hands on that was supposed to happen. And the fact of this happening, several of the churches in there, they're out of Cincinnati. They were from Cincinnati where they were at. And her parents also were missionaries in Africa. But anyway, they have been over there for years. You can imagine they had to move to Burkina Faso not too long ago because it got too dangerous there. But they are raising those 3 kids now. The oldest girl now will be old enough to go to college. But when they come to the church, they come to our house. And we go out and eat, and I tell you, you talk about a treat. I mean, and what the thing that's nice about it is she's a medical doctor. He was an ag teacher, had ag background, so he's teaching all the farmers over there how to raise crops and that, so they can maintain keeping their own food for them. So it's kind of a twofold purpose there. But that was the time that you question me. Well, don't question God, but that happened, okay? And they've, right now, they are back in Indiana right now, but they've been about 15 years on the mission field now. Then we decided, I decided I would go to, see, I got mixed up here, let me just, wait, got 5 before, okay? Now we go to Operation Tiny Tim. This is really the thing that different ones in here said something to them about what had happened. And they said, well, you gotta hear about this. Well, then we went to Operation Tiny Tim. I was in the service, drafted into the service, really went by the buddy system. But we thought we'd gone together, she and I, 7 years, and we thought, well, when I get done with basic training, we'll get married, Dr. Holm will get married. Well, what happened was I called Sheila and I said, well, we can't do that because I just won a 19-day free cruise. We won a 19-day free cruise, all expenses paid, lodging and all, for 19 days. She said, where's that? And I said, Korea. yeah. So I said, I can't pass it up because I get her 19 days over and when I come back, it'll be 19 days. And I said, you can't beat the price. I said, you can't beat it. So anyway, that changed our plans. That we thought, well, okay. So anyway, so I called her and she said, well, I'll just fly out to Tacoma and we'll get married. So we had a military wedding. we had a military wedding. And she said when she got back home, or small town, everybody knows every time anybody sneezes, but anyway, she said, the director said to me, now you know everybody marked their calendar, that you had to get married probably, you know. Well, that didn't happen. It took 3 years to get the first one, so that didn't happen. Yeah. But she attended Ball State College while I was gone and got her teaching degree. Now let's go here. And then, back here. Okay. Get the right page up here. Then one day, I was in Korea. I was on a DMZ up there, and which wasn't very pleasant right after the war. But one day the chaplain, I knew the chaplain very well, and I worked a little bit with an orphanage. We had an orphanage there that was really a church, which amounted to about 150 orphans there. So the chaplain asked me one day, said, do you want to ride the soul with me? I said, I've got to go down the soul. And I said, well, and I was in charge of the ASP, their ammunition supply point, on the DMZ. And I said, well, I need to go down there too. So I said, we'll just ride down together. And so on the way down there, he said, you know, we got these 150 kids. And the kids are needing clothing, they're needing to go to school, they need toys, they need medicine and everything. I don't know what we're going to do because Christmas is coming up. So about a week later, I picked up the mail and I received a letter from back home. Said, Don, this is Marshall Liggett. What can we do for you for Christmas? I said, woo! What can you do? Here comes God again, you know. Here comes God. So what happened in that small town of 1,500 people, two churches kind of went together and the school and everybody, and they sent 40 10-pound packages of clothing, and school supplies, medicine, toys, and so forth. 40 packages over there, 10-pound packages over there at that time. I went to the post office here the other day, and I asked him, I said, what would it cost today to send a 10-pound package to Korea? They said it'd be $80. So you can imagine that little town really went to work, and it became known even in the Army Times. Of course, you're in the Army Times, you. In the Army Times, it shows up there, Operation Tiny Tim, and so you can't read the articles, hard to read, but you can see all the kids getting their clothing and everything. So it just blew out of the water, but really made a good little town. And we got the press in town for that too, so that worked out pretty good. But anyway, they wanted me to speak last year. I'm not a speaker, but they wanted me to. I'd gone on the honor flights of the Alumni Association for alumni last year. They said, well, will you tell us about your trip to there? And I tell them about that. And I said, does anybody remember in here what happened 70 years ago in this town with this school and churches? Anybody remember what happened? And a fellow put his hand up. A fellow by the name of John Riley. He happened to be a West Point graduate. And anyway, he threw his hand up and he said, Don, I know what it was. It was Tiny Tim. And I said, how do you remember that, John? And he said, well, I was a kid about so big in church, and I remember the number of days that we spent, the kids and us, packing clothing and stuff to send over there. And, but anyway, he reminded me so much, he even looked like, you know, you have lookalikes as you go through his life. And she and I both said, he looks so much like the guy here, about Roger Brown. I said, and they both were in the service. And I said, and they both, yeah, I think he was the same rank. I think he was a buck private. Oh, that's what John, no. That's Chris's idea. I said private E2. He said no, buck sergeant. Buck private, yeah. Okay, well, God is good. That's my story. I could go on and on, but not because you got potty break coming up, and then my riddle's about going, so anyway. I didn't sleep much last night. Of course, I didn't have a place to sleep for a long while, but anyway, I appreciate Elder Reed. Sheila and I said, you know, this church has really been a great family for us. We've got so many friends here. She has, anyway. I make enemies. She makes friends. I make enemies. But anyway, she said, you know, this has really been a blessing. We feel the same way back in Indiana. We've got a couple friends back there too, but we get back there and think, how long before we go back here? How long go back there? So anyway, we got good friends on both ends, and blessed to have a church like this that's got this many friends. So thank you. Sorry after last night, they took a lot of my information last night, and I'm pooped. Thank you.
Let's give it a hand. Thanks, Brother Alan. You're blessed. Okay, get him, John, get him.
Well, had a minister, been in this church, the Nazarene Church, for about 40 years, and good friend, he's a great guy. He was leaving, they had a fellow come in by the name of Tom Goldman. He come in, a big tall fellow. And Tom come in, so Reverend Hurry said, have you met Tom? And I said, no. He'd come to the funeral home, I'd be going. He said, I'd go to church, he'd be going. Never get together. Hadn't met him. Come a few days before Christmas, in the house sits here in the church right here, in Nazarene Church. So I go down there and go to the door, and I thought, oh man, this is bait. And anyway, he come to the door, and he had a little kid in his hand, I had to look up, he said, that's all I was. I thought I might get eaten alive here. But anyway, I said, are you the minister of the church over here? He said, yes. And I said, well, my wife and I on our way home, and I said, up in northern Indiana, and I said, we run out of gas. And I said, we need about $25 to get on down the road. If you can you help me out? And he started prancing, He started prancing, really new to the church. And he said, well, I don't have it. I said, they probably got a fund here. I said, why don't you go over to the Friends Church and ask them to minister over there? Probably know it. I said, yeah, and he'll send me to the Christian church. And I said, you just send me on. I said, you're just putting me on. I said, surely you know somebody in the church has got $25 to help us out. And he said, well, he just pranced. And I even called him Scrooge before it was over. I was like I didn't get killed. Like I didn't get killed. And I said, I guess I'll leave. He said, who really are you? And I said, well, I'm Don Thornburg, has a funeral home. And he said, well, I've been told you would crucify me before I ever met you. And I said, I got it done. Anyway, I can talk.
Hey, listen, you'd have to have a sense of humor to be an undertaker, amen? Isn't that the truth? You know, so at least we know this. When he couldn't get the attention from his wife, when he felt like his wife wasn't listening, we always know at work he always had a captive audience. Right? Always had a captive audience. But you know what? We thank God. You know what? Many of us come from